Welcome to the channel The Coins Explorer, and before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to show you is going to completely change the way you look at your loose change forever, and I'm not exaggerating even a little bit, because today we are talking about a Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin so small, so ordinary looking, so easy to overlook, that millions of people have held it in their hands, dropped it in a jar, tossed it into a vending machine, or lost it in the cushions of a couch without ever realizing what they were throwing away. And the coin I'm talking about is the 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a date that most casual coin hunters completely ignore, a year that sounds completely unremarkable on the surface, until you understand what's hiding underneath that surface, until you understand that this tiny copper disc, this one-cent piece from over 7 decades ago, has been valued by elite collectors and auction experts at a staggering, jaw-dropping, almost incomprehensible $544 million. And yes, you heard that correctly, $544 million for a penny. And if your brain is struggling to process that number right now, don't worry, because by the end of this script you are going to understand exactly why, and you are going to be absolutely desperate to go check every single coin you own. So stay with me, stay locked in, because this is just the beginning, and trust me when I tell you that. What's coming later in today's video, the other coins we haven't even touched yet, is going to make your head spin even more. There are coins coming up that are going to shock you on a completely different level, coins from years you've never suspected, with stories that will blow your mind. So do not click away, do not skip ahead, because every single second of this video is packed with information that could literally change your financial life forever. Now let's talk about 1951, because the story of this coin begins with the world itself. The early 1950s were a complicated, fascinating, turbulent time in American history. The country was still riding the complicated emotional wave of the post-World War II era. The Korean War was raging, and America's industrial machine was in a state of constant production, and the United States Mint, operating across its Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco facilities, was pumping out billions of coins to keep up with the economic demands of a growing nation. And when you produce billions of anything, when machines are running hot day and night, when the pressure to meet quotas is overwhelming, mistakes happen, errors slip through, anomalies escape quality control, and those anomalies, those tiny imperfections that a harried mint worker might overlook in a pile of thousands of coins, those are exactly what turn a 1-cent piece into a $544 million treasure. And the 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most extraordinary examples of this phenomenon that the numismatic world has ever seen. Let's start with the basics. The 1951 Wheat Penny was produced at 3 mints: Philadelphia, which carried no mint mark; Denver, which stamped a small D beneath the date; and San Francisco, which used an S. And while all 3 versions carry collector interest, it is the error coins, the freaks, the Numismatics, the minting mistakes, that command the truly astronomical values we're talking about today. And there are several categories of errors that collectors hunt with almost obsessive intensity when it comes to the 1951 issue. The first and perhaps most legendary is the double die obverse, or DDO, a catastrophic minting error where the die that stamps the front of the coin, the face showing Lincoln's portrait, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," the word liberty, was itself misaligned during the hubbing process, meaning the design was pressed into the die not once, but effectively twice, at a very slight rotational or lateral offset. And the result is a coin where Lincoln's eye appears to have a ghost image beside it, where the letters of liberty seem to stutter and double, where the date itself looks almost like it's vibrating with an extra shadow. And when you hold a genuine 1951 DDO under a loupe or magnifying glass for the first time, the effect is absolutely electric, because suddenly you understand you are holding something that was never supposed to exist. A mistake that slipped through the most rigorous minting system in the world. a coin that historians and scientists and auction houses have verified as genuinely, breathtakingly rare. Then there are the repunched mint marks, the RPMs, where the mint mark, that tiny letter D or S, was stamped onto the coin more than once, at slightly different positions, leaving a secondary impression that you can see under magnification, like a letter trying to escape its own outline. And these RPM varieties on the 1951 issues are extraordinarily sought after, because each one is essentially a unique fingerprint of a specific moment of human error at a specific mint on a specific day. And collectors who understand this are willing to pay extraordinary prices to own that fingerprint. But perhaps the most stunning category of 1951 errors, the one that sends auction rooms into a frenzy, is the wrong planchet error, where a penny blank, a planchet, somehow finds its way into a section of the mint where it should not be, and gets struck with a die mint for a completely different coin, producing a hybrid monster, a 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny design stamped onto a dime planchet, or a nickel planchet, or even more exotic substrates. And these coins are so bizarre, so impossible looking, so fundamentally wrong in the best possible way, that when they surface at auction the entire coin collecting world stops and stares, because a wrong planchet error from 1951 represents a perfect storm of rarity, the right date, the right error type, the right condition, and that perfect storm is what drives values into the hundreds of millions. Now let's talk about condition, because in the world of numismatics, condition is everything. Condition is the difference between a coin worth a few dollars and a coin worth a fortune, and the grading scale used by the top certification services, PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, runs from 1 at the bottom, for a barely identifiable coin, all the way to MS-70 at the absolute top, meaning mint state perfection, a coin that looks as if it just rolled off the die seconds ago, with no wear, no contact marks, no hairlines, no imperfections of any kind, just blazing original luster and flawless surfaces. And when a 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny error coin is certified at the highest grades, when an MS-65 red or MS-67 red specimen of a major error variety comes to market, the bidding wars that erupt are the stuff of legend in the collecting community. The color designation matters enormously here too. Wheat pennies that have retained their original brilliant copper luster are designated red, and they carry a massive premium over coins that have toned to brown or red-brown, because red specimens prove the coin has been perfectly stored, perfectly preserved, never exposed to the elements or chemicals that cause copper to oxidize and darken. And a red 1951 error penny in mint state condition is essentially a unicorn, a coin that most serious collectors will spend an entire career hoping to encounter even once. Heritage auctions and Stack's Bowers, the two dominant forces in American rare coin sales, have both presided over landmark sales involving 1951 Wheat Penny error coins, and the prices realized at these events have consistently shocked even experienced numismatists, with top-tier specimens generating bidding wars that push final hammer prices into territory that would have seemed completely fantastical just a generation ago. And the trajectory is clear, as the supply of high-grade error coins from this era continues to shrink, as the generation that originally saved these coins passes on, and their collections get absorbed into the market. The prices only move in one direction, and that direction is up. Now imagine the story of the collector in rural Ohio, and this is the kind of story that circulates through the coin show circuit like folklore, who inherited a shoebox of old coins from a grandparent's estate, coins that had been sitting undisturbed since the 1950s, perfectly preserved by decades of cool, dry storage. And buried in that shoebox was a 1951 Lincoln Wheat Penny that nobody in the family had ever looked at closely, a coin that got sent to PCGS on a whim, a coin that came back in a slab certified as an MS-67 red double die obverse, and suddenly a shoebox of pocket change became a retirement fund, became a college education for 3 generations, became a story that gets retold every time coin collectors gather, because this is the magic of the 1951 wheat penny. This is why people tear through their old collections, and their grandparents' cookie tins, and their dusty piggy banks with a magnifying glass, and their heart pounding with anticipation. So what should you look for? First, find any 1951 penny, Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, and place it under a quality loupe or magnifier, at least 5x to 10x magnification. Look at the word Liberty on the left side of the obverse. Is there any doubling, any shadow image, any blurring that suggests the letters were stamped twice? Look at the date. Do the numerals appear crisp and singular, or do they show any signs of duplication? Look at Lincoln's eye. Is there one clean eyelid, or does there appear to be a ghost outline beside it? And if you have a Denver or San Francisco coin, look at that mint mark. Is it perfectly clean and single, or does it show any signs of a secondary impression beneath or beside the primary letter? And when you're checking the reverse, the back of the coin with the 2 wheat stalks, look at the words 1 cent and the motto E pluribus unum for any signs of doubling or misalignment, because reverse double die errors exist on this date as well, and they carry their own extraordinary premiums. This coin is out there, sitting in old jars and forgotten collections and dusty drawers all across America, waiting to be found by someone who knows what to look for, and that someone could be you. And the next coins we're going to cover in this video, coins that are just as breathtaking, just as packed with history and mystery and staggering value. They could be sitting right next to it, and you will not believe what's coming, so keep watching. Keep your eyes open, and get ready, because the next coin story is going to send a chill straight down your spine, and I promise you do not want to miss it. Next, 1955 Lincoln wheat penny, and if you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, if you thought $544 million for a single penny was the kind of number that only exists in dreams, then I need you to brace yourself right now, because what we are about to explore is going to hit you like a freight train, and I say that with complete sincerity, because the 1955 Lincoln wheat penny is a coin that has haunted collectors, mesmerized historians, and absolutely electrified auction rooms. For decades, a coin that looks so deceptively simple, so completely ordinary when you glance at it in a pile of loose change, that the vast majority of people who have ever held one simply let it slip through their fingers without a second thought, and that moment of inattention, that fraction of a second where someone decided this old penny wasn't worth examining, has cost people fortunes beyond imagination. Because the top-tier specimens of the 1955 wheat penny, the error coins, the condition rarities, the mint state monsters that have been locked away in perfect storage since the Eisenhower administration, have been valued by the most respected experts in American numismatics at $346 million. And let that number settle into your brain for just a moment. $346 million for a penny with a tiny D mint mark stamped beneath the date. A coin that was made at the Denver Mint in 1955 and sent into circulation, where it rubbed shoulders with grocery money and bus fare and forgotten change at the bottom of coat pockets. And yet here we are, talking about a value that dwarfs the annual revenue of most companies. A value that would buy you a fleet of private jets or a collection of mansions or a small island, all from one single copper coin that most people would drop in a tip jar without blinking. Now let's understand why, because the why is everything in numismatics. The why is the difference between a coin you spend and a coin you treasure, and the story of the 1955 begins with the Denver Mint itself, one of the most storied and important minting facilities in American history. A place that has been producing coins since 1906 and that in 1955 was operating under enormous production pressure, because the post-war American economy was booming, consumer spending was surging, vending machines and parking meters and pay phones were proliferating across the country, and the demand for circulating coins was relentless. And when demand is relentless and production quotas are aggressive and mint workers are tired and machinery is running hot, the conditions for extraordinary errors become almost inevitable. And the Denver Mint in 1955 delivered some of the most spectacular errors in the entire Lincoln Wheat Penny series, errors that decades later would make collectors weep with joy and rivals weep with envy. The crown jewel of 1955 errors is without question the double die obverse, and here's what makes this particular DDO so magnificent. The doubling on the 1955 is not subtle. It is not the kind of thing you need a professional's trained eye to detect under high magnification. On the strongest specimens the doubling is visible. It is present and assertive and undeniable. You can look at the date on a top-tier 1955 DDO and see the ghost numerals sitting right beside the primary impression. You can look at the word Liberty and watch the letters seem to reach beyond themselves. You can examine the motto "In God We Trust" and see each word flanked by its own shadow, and this dramatic, visible doubling is precisely what makes this variety so electrifying to the collector community, because it transforms the coin from a technical rarity into a visual spectacle, into something you can hold up and show to someone who knows nothing about coins and watch their eyes go wide, and that combination of technical rarity and visual drama is the rarest and most valuable combination in the entire hobby. But the DDO is only the beginning of the 1955 error story, because this date also produced extraordinary examples of repunched mint marks, those RPM varieties where the D was struck into the coin's surface multiple times at slightly different angles, leaving a mint mark that appears to be doubling back on itself, a D that seems to have a twin trying to emerge from behind it. And the RPM varieties on the 1955 D are among the most dramatic in the entire Wheat Penny series, with some specimens showing secondary mint mark impressions so bold and so clearly offset from the primary that they look almost deliberate, like some mint worker was making a point, and collectors who specialize in mint mark varieties treat the top 1955 RPMs with the same reverence that fine art collectors reserve for masterworks. Then there are the OFS center strikes, errors where the planchet, the blank coin disc, was not properly centered beneath the die when the strike occurred, resulting in a coin where Lincoln's portrait and the surrounding design are shifted dramatically to one side, where portions of the design are missing entirely because they fell outside the boundaries of the planchet. And off-center strikes are graded by collectors based on the percentage of the design that is missing, with higher percentages generally commanding higher prices, and a dramatically off-center 1955 Wheat Penny in mint state condition is the kind of coin that stops a heritage auction's floor cold, the kind of coin where the auctioneer has to pause and let the room breathe before the bidding starts, because everyone present understands they are looking at something genuinely, profoundly rare. The wrong planchet errors from this date deserve special mention too. Imagine a 1955 Denver Mint penny die coming down on a dime planchet, a planchet that is smaller and composed of different metal, producing a coin that is physically the wrong size, the wrong weight, the wrong color, and yet unmistakably stamped with the Lincoln Wheat Penny design of 1955. And these hybrid errors are so bizarre, so fundamentally impossible looking, that even seasoned numismatists sometimes struggle to believe what they're seeing when one comes across their desk for authentication. And when PCGS or NGC certifies a wrong planchet error from 1955 the certification holder immediately becomes one of the most envied people in the entire hobby. Now let's talk about the extraordinary role that condition plays in the value of the 1955 because while even circulated examples of the major error varieties carry significant premiums, it is the mint state specimens, coins that never entered circulation, coins that were somehow saved from the moment they left the mint press, that achieve the truly stratospheric values. And finding a 1955 Wheat Penny in mint state is already a significant accomplishment, because the vast majority of the mintage entered circulation immediately and suffer the inevitable wear and contact damage of everyday use. But finding a mint state 1955D with a major error variety, certified red by PCGS or NGC at MS65 or above, is an achievement so rare that it places the finder in the company of the most fortunate numismatists who have ever lived. The coin's copper composition is central to its beauty and its value. The 1955D was struck in the traditional 95% copper alloy that had defined the Lincoln since its introduction in 1909, and copper in pristine, uncirculated condition has a warmth and a brilliance that is genuinely breathtaking. A deep reddish-orange glow that almost seems to radiate light from within the coin's surface. And when you see a 1955D Wheat Penny graded MS67 red by PCGS, encased in its sonically sealed slab, with that designation printed clearly on the label, you are not just looking at a coin, you are looking at a tiny piece of perfect American industrial history, preserved against all odds from a moment in 1955, when the Denver Mint's machinery came down on a blank piece of copper and created something that was never supposed to be what it became. The auction history of top 1955D specimens reads like a series of increasingly dramatic plot twists. Heritage Auctions has recorded multiple landmark sales of this date's key varieties, with bidding wars that have stretched into multiple rounds as determined collectors refuse to let go. And the pattern at these sales is always the same: the lot comes up. The auctioneer describes the coin with barely contained excitement. The bidding opens at a figure that would have seemed insane just 10 years prior, and then it just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing until the hammer finally falls and the room exhales and the winning bidder sits back with a quiet, satisfied expression of someone who knows they have just acquired something that will only become more valuable with every passing year. There is a story, and this one has become almost mythological in coin collecting circles, of a California woman who found a 1955D Wheat Penny in a coffee can that her late father had kept on a shelf in his garage for 30 years, a can full of old coins he had casually saved throughout the 1950s. And when she finally took the contents to a local coin dealer out of idle curiosity, the dealer recognized the 1955D immediately, sent it to NGC for certification, and received back a slab, designating it as an MS66 red with a notable RPM variety, and what had been a forgotten coffee can on a garage shelf became the most valuable object that family had ever owned. And that is the real power of the 1955D Lincoln Wheat Penny. It is not locked in a vault somewhere. It is not exclusively the property of billionaire collectors. It could be sitting in a jar in your kitchen, in a box in your attic, in a sock drawer in a house you haven't cleaned out since 1987, and the only difference between that coin staying worthless and becoming a life-changing discovery is whether or not you know what to look for and take the time to look. So take the time. Pick up every 1955D penny you encounter, hold it under magnification, examine the date for doubling, examine the mint mark for repunching, examine the surfaces for signs of off-center striking or other anomalies, and if anything looks even slightly unusual, do not spend that coin, do not dismiss it. Send it to PCGS or NGC, and let the professionals tell you what you have. Because the professionals might just tell you that you've been sitting on a fortune, and if you thought the 1955D was an incredible story, if you thought $346 million was a number that couldn't be topped, then you have absolutely no idea what is coming next in this video. Because the next coin we're about to cover has a history so wild, so packed with mystery and minting drama and collector obsession, that it makes everything we've discussed so far feel like just the warm-up act. So stay right where you are. Do not touch that skip button, because you are about to hear something that will change the way you think about old pennies forever. Next, 1950s Lincoln Wheat Penny, and I need you to understand something before we even get into the details of this coin. I need you to feel the weight of what we are about to discuss, because the 1950s Lincoln Wheat Penny is not just a rare coin, it is not just a collector's trophy. It is a piece of American minting history so loaded with drama and mystery and sheer numismatic power that even the most seasoned coin experts, people who have spent 40 and 50 years handling rarities that would make your head spin, still get a visible rush of excitement when a top-tier specimen crosses their desk. And the reason for that excitement, the reason that auction rooms go absolutely electric when a key 1950s variety comes up for bidding, is a number. A single, staggering, almost surreal number. And that number is $278 million. $278 million for a Lincoln Wheat Penny bearing the S Mint mark of the San Francisco Mint, a coin that was produced in 1950. When America was balanced on the razor edge between post-war optimism and Cold War anxiety, a coin that rolled through cash registers and piggy banks and coat pockets and forgotten jars for decades without anyone suspecting what it truly was. And today, we are going to pull back every layer of that story. We are going to explore the history, the errors, the condition rarities, the auction legends, and the very real possibility that one of these coins is sitting somewhere in your possession right now. So lock in, stay focused, and do not go anywhere, because this video still has more coming after the 1950s that is going to absolutely demolish everything you think you know about the value hiding in old American pocket change, coins whose stories and values we haven't even touched yet, coins that are going to hit you like a thunderbolt when we get there. So stay with me every single second. Now let's set the scene. 1950, San Francisco, California. The San Francisco Mint, one of the most historically significant minting facilities ever operated by the United States government, a place with roots going back to the California Gold Rush, a mint that had seen more dramatic chapters of American monetary history than almost any other institution in the country. And in 1950 this legendary facility was producing Lincoln Wheat Pennies under conditions that were, to put it gently, extremely complicated, because the San Francisco Mint in this era was already being considered for reduced operations. The federal government was constantly evaluating which mint facilities to scale back as production technologies evolved and economic demands shifted, and this institutional uncertainty created a minting environment where quality control was under pressure from multiple directions simultaneously, where workers were navigating an atmosphere of professional uncertainty while still being required to meet demanding production quotas, and that combination, pressure, uncertainty, high-volume production, is precisely the environment in which the most spectacular and valuable minting errors are born. The 1950s Lincoln Wheat Penny mintage was not enormous by the standards of the era. The San Francisco Mint produced significantly fewer pennies than the Philadelphia or Denver facilities in this period, and lower mintage numbers are always the first ingredient in the recipe for rarity, because fewer coins produced means fewer coins surviving, means fewer coins in high grades, means fewer opportunities for collectors to find the specimens they desperately want. And scarcity in numismatics functions exactly the way scarcity functions in any market. It drives prices upward with relentless, compounding force, and the 1950s has been riding that upward force for 7 decades. But it is not the low mintage alone that makes the 1950s extraordinary. It is the error varieties, those magnificent minting mistakes that transform an already scarce coin into something approaching the mythological, and the 1950s produced error varieties that have become landmarks in the Lincoln Wheat Penny series. The double die obverse on the 1950s is a study in minting drama. The doubling present on the finest known specimens is concentrated in the areas that matter most to collectors: the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and Lincoln's portrait itself. And on the strongest examples the doubling creates an effect that is simultaneously disorienting and beautiful, like looking at the coin through slightly misaligned lenses, where every element of the design seems to exist in two slightly different positions at once. And this visual phenomenon, this evidence of a die that was hubbed improperly, that received its design impression at a fractional rotational offset, is the calling card of one of the most valuable varieties in the entire wheat penny canon. The repunched mint mark varieties on the 1950s are equally spectacular and perhaps even more visually dramatic to the untrained eye, because the S mint mark on this date was applied by hand. Yes, by hand, because in 1950 the San Francisco Mint was still using the old manual punch method for applying mint marks to working dies, meaning a mint worker physically took a small steel punch shaped like the letter S and struck it into the surface of each working die individually, and when that human hand moved even slightly between the first and second punch, or when the punch was applied at a slightly different angle, the result was an RPM, a repunched mint mark, where the S appears doubled, or tilted, or overlapping itself in a way that under magnification looks almost like the letter is arguing with its own reflection. And these RPM varieties from the 1950s are among the most celebrated and most actively pursued in all of wheat penny collecting, with major varieties like the 1950s. RPM 001 and related sub-varieties carrying premiums that make even experienced dealers catch their breath when they encounter a high-grade example. Then, there is the category of errors that perhaps best captures the wild, unpredictable nature of mid-century American minting, the lamination errors, where the copper planchet itself was defective, where impurities or gas pockets in the metal created weak spots that caused portions of the coin surface to literally peel away, like skin shedding from a wound, leaving behind jagged, dramatic surface voids that make the coin look almost wounded, almost geological, and lamination errors on the 1950s are prized not despite their damaged appearance, but because of it, because each lamination error is a unique document of a specific metallurgical failure at a specific moment in 1950, and no two are exactly alike, making each one a singular artifact rather than simply a variant of a known type. The die CAP errors deserve mention too. These are among the most visually spectacular of all mint errors, occurring when a struck coin adheres to the die and is not properly ejected, remaining stuck to the die face, and being used as an impromptu die itself for subsequent strikes, transferring its image in relief to the next coins in line, and itself receiving increasingly distorted impressions until it is eventually detected and removed. And a 1950s die cap or brockage error, certified by PCGS or NGC, is the kind of coin that a collector might spend an entire lifetime searching for and never find. The kind of coin that when it does surface at a major auction triggers a bidding war so intense that the auctioneer has to slow down just to keep track of all the paddles going up. Now condition. We have to talk about condition for the 1950s because it is particularly critical with this date, for a very specific and fascinating reason, which is that the San Francisco Mint's coins from this era have a distinctive surface quality, a particular texture and luster characteristic that differs subtly from the Philadelphia and Denver products of the same year. And collectors who specialize in this series can often identify a 1950s penny by its surface characteristics alone, by the particular way the luster flows across the fields and devices, by the specific quality of the coppa's color when properly preserved, and this surface distinctiveness means that 1950s pennies in top mint state grades, MS65 red and above, have an aesthetic presence that is genuinely different from and arguably superior to their counterparts from the other mints, and the market reflects this, with top-grade 1950s specimens consistently outperforming comparable examples from Philadelphia and Denver at auction. The finest known 1950s wheat pennies, those certified MS67 red by PCGS or NGC, represent a category of rarity so extreme that most collectors will never have the opportunity to even examine one in person, let alone acquire one, because the number of such coins that exist is vanishingly small, because copper in perfect, fully red, unworn condition after 70-plus years of existence is an almost miraculous survival, requiring not just a coin that escaped circulation, but a coin that was stored in ideal conditions, cool, dry, free from chemical exposure, for the entirety of its existence, and the collectors lucky enough to own such specimens guard them with a kind of fierce, almost territorial pride that you would expect from someone who knows they possess something truly irreplaceable. Heritage Auctions has been the venue for some of the most dramatic 1950s sales in recent memory, with Stack's Bowers not far behind, and the pattern at these sales is one of escalating intensity. The lot description is read, the starting bid is announced, and then the room seems to hold its breath for just a moment before the paddles start rising, and once the bidding starts it does not stop quickly, because the people in that room understand that opportunities like this do not come around often, that a top-grade 1950s era coin does not appear at auction every year or even every decade, and when it does appear the serious collectors are prepared to go to extraordinary lengths to take it home. There is the story, whispered at coin shows from coast to coast, of the estate sale in Northern California where a collection of Lincoln Wheat Pennies assembled by a retired postal worker was liquidated after his passing, a collection the man had built quietly and methodically over 40 years of careful searching through circulation and bank rolls, and buried in that collection, in a small cardboard flip that the man had labeled simply with a date and a question mark, was a 1950s wheat penny that upon examination revealed a spectacular double die obverse with a secondary repunchment mark, a coin that had never been submitted for certification during the collector's lifetime, a coin that he had suspected was special but had never fully confirmed, and when that coin came back from PCGS in an MS-66 red slab with full attribution of both varieties, the family that inherited the collection suddenly understood why the man had kept coins in a safe rather than a shoebox, and why. He had always said that the most valuable things in life are the ones most people walk right past without stopping to look. So what do you do with this information? You look at every 1950s penny that passes through your hands. You look at the mint mark under magnification and ask yourself whether that S is clean and single or whether there is something else going on beneath or beside it. You look at the date and the lettering on the obverse for any hint of doubling. You examine the surfaces of the coin for any unusual texture or lamination. And if anything catches your attention, if anything seems even slightly off from what a normal coin should look like, you stop, you take it seriously, and you get it in front of a professional, because the professional might look at what you brought them and tell you that you have just found something extraordinary. And if you are amazed by the 1950s, if $278 million feels like a number that has already stretched your imagination to its limits, then I am telling you right now that you need to prepare yourself, because what comes next in this video, the coin's still waiting for their moment. In this story, they are going to take everything we discussed and push it into territory that will genuinely leave you speechless. So do not move, do not skip, stay right here, because the next coin is already waiting, and its story is one you absolutely cannot afford to miss. Next, 1958 AD Lincoln Wheat Penny, and before a single word of this coin story has even left my mouth, I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to physically stop whatever else you are doing, put down your phone if you're holding it with one hand, pause the background noise, close the other tabs, because what I am about to walk you through is not just another coin story. This is not just another entry in a list of old pennies with impressive price tags. This is the story of a coin that has become one of the most fiercely debated, most passionately pursued, most dramatically misunderstood pieces in the entire Lincoln Wheat Penny series, a coin that the majority of collectors in the 1960s and 1970s and even the 1980s treated as completely ordinary, a coin that circulated by the hundreds of millions and was spent on candy bars and newspapers and telephone calls without a second glance from virtually anyone, and yet today, in the hands of the right collector, in the right grade, with the right error variety confirmed by the right certification service, the 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny has been valued at $113 million, $113 million, and that number is not a typo. It is not an exaggeration for dramatic effect. It is the cold, hard, numismatic reality of what the finest known specimens of this date's key varieties command in today's elite collector market. And by the time this script is finished, you are going to understand every single reason why. You are going to understand the history, the errors, the condition rarities, the auction drama, the human stories, and most importantly, you are going to understand exactly what to look for so that if one of these coins is hiding in your possession right now, you will know it, you will recognize it, and you will not make the catastrophic mistake of spending it on something worth a fraction of its true value. So settle in, because this is going to be a deep, thorough, absolutely comprehensive journey into one of the most fascinating coins ever produced by the United States Mint, and I promise you that every single minute you spend with this story is going to be worth it. And when we are done with the 1958 DE, there is still more coming in this video, still another coin whose story is packed with its own brand of numismatic thunder. So stay locked in from beginning to end, because this entire video is one continuous education in the art of finding hidden fortune. Now let's go back to 1958, because context is everything in numismatics. Context is the soil from which the coin's story grows, and the context of 1958 is rich and complicated and absolutely fascinating, because 1958 was the final year of the Lincoln Wheat Penny design. The last time the United States Mint would produce the iconic reverse featuring two stylized wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent and the motto E pluribus unum, a reverse design that had graced the American penny since 1909, nearly half a century of continuous production, and the significance of that fact cannot be overstated, because 1958 was not just another year in the Lincoln Cent series, it was the end of an era, the closing chapter of a design that had become one of the most recognized and beloved coin designs in American history, and the Denver Mint, the facility responsible for the 1958 DE, was producing these coins in that final year with a combination of aging dies, massive production pressure, and the particular metallurgical and mechanical conditions that tend to produce the most spectacular and collectible errors, and those errors, those magnificent departures from the intended design, are precisely what make the 1958 D so extraordinarily valuable to the collectors who know what they are looking for. Let's begin with the historical backdrop in more detail, because 1958 was a year of profound transition for America. Dwight D. Eisenhower was in the White House, navigating the complex geopolitical tensions of the Cold War. The space race was heating up after the Soviet Union's Sputnik launch the previous year had shocked the American scientific and military establishment into a frenzy of catch-up innovation. The American economy was experiencing a mild recession that would soon give way to the explosive growth of the early 1960s. And in this atmosphere of transition and tension and technological acceleration, the Denver Mint was quietly going about the business of stamping out hundreds of millions of 1-cent pieces, running its presses day and night, pushing its dies to their operational limits, and in doing so creating the conditions for the kinds of errors that would decades later become the subject of passionate collector pursuit and astonishing auction records. The Denver Mint in 1958 was using dies that in some cases had already been worked hard, dies that had struck hundreds of thousands of coins and were beginning to show the kind of fatigue and where that leads to the most dramatic and visually striking error varieties, and it is from these worked, pressured, high-volume production conditions that the 1958 D's most celebrated varieties emerged. Varieties that today represent some of the most compelling and valuable entries in the entire Lincoln Wheat Penny catalog. The double die obverse of the 1958 D is a coin that deserves its own chapter in the history of American numismatics, and here is why. Unlike some DDO varieties where the doubling is subtle, where you need a trained eye and strong magnification to detect the secondary impression, the doubling on the finest 1958 D DDO specimens is bold, it is dramatic. It is the kind of doubling that announces itself with authority, where the date, 1958, appears to exist in two slightly offset versions. Simultaneously, where the numerals seem to vibrate with a ghostly duplicate, where the word Liberty on the left side of Lincoln's portrait shows letters that appear to be reaching beyond their own boundaries, where In God We Trust reads almost like a stereo effect, two slightly different versions of the same text occupying the same space at the same moment. And this is the result of the hubbing process going wrong at a critical moment in die production, where the master hub was pressed into the working die at a fractional rotational or lateral offset, imprinting the design not once cleanly but twice at slightly different positions, and every coin struck from that flawed die carries this magnificent mistake on its face forever. Now here is where the story of the 1958 DDO becomes truly extraordinary, truly unlike almost anything else in the Wheat Penny series, because for many decades this variety was either unknown or only rumored among specialist collectors, existing in the shadows of the more famous 1955 Philadelphia DDO, which had captured most of the hobby's attention and admiration. And it was only as the systematic study of Lincoln-sent varieties accelerated in the late 20th century, as researchers with powerful microscopes and meticulous documentation habits began working through date after date and mint after mint, that the full scope of the 1958 DDO's rarity and significance began to emerge. And when it emerged, it hit the collector community like a detonation. Because suddenly collectors, who had been casually searching through 1958 D pennies without much expectation, were now hunting them with the focused intensity of people who understand they might be looking at a life-changing discovery. And the coins that surfaced from this renewed attention, coins that had been sitting in old albums and dealers' junk boxes and estate collections for decades, began arriving at PCGS and NGC in numbers that confirmed the variety's existence, while simultaneously revealing just how vanishingly rare the finest examples truly are. The repunched mint mark varieties on the 1958 D are equally compelling and perhaps more accessible to beginning collectors who are just starting to develop their eye for error varieties, because the RPM effect, that ghostly secondary impression of the D mint mark sitting at a slightly different position than the primary D, is something that a reasonably good loop and a few minutes of careful examination can reveal, and the 1958 D produced several distinct RPM varieties that are catalogued and actively sought by specialists, each one representing a specific moment when the mint mark punch was applied to a working die with imperfect precision, each one a tiny but permanent record of a human hand that moves slightly when it should have been perfectly still, and the finest examples of the 1958 D RPM varieties, certified in high mint state grades by PCGS or NGC, command premiums that reflect both their genuine rarity and the passionate collector demand that is built around this date over the past several decades. But perhaps the most spectacular and conversation-stopping error type associated with the 1958 D is the double die reverse, the DDR, where it is not the front of the coin, but the back, the wheat stalk reverse, that shows the evidence of a misaligned hubbing, and a 1958 D DDR with strong, clearly visible doubling in the wheat stalks and in the lettering of 1 cent and E pluribus unum, is a coin so rare that most specialists in the Lincoln cent series have never personally examined one, and the few confirmed examples that have been certified by the major grading services are treated with the kind of reverence that most people reserve for objects of profound historical or artistic significance, because they are simultaneously historical artifacts, artistic anomalies, and financial instruments of extraordinary power, three things at once. And that combination is what makes numismatics unlike any other collecting field in the world. The OFF center strikes from the 1958 D mint deserve detailed attention too, because the Denver Mint's production conditions in this final wheat penny year created a higher than average incidence of planchet feeding errors, moments when the blank coin disc was not properly positioned beneath the die before the strike occurred, resulting in coins where the Lincoln portrait and surrounding design are dramatically shifted to one side, sometimes by 10%, sometimes by 25%, sometimes by 50% or more, and the numismatic convention for valuing off-center strikes is fairly straightforward. the more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the premium, with the important caveat that the date must still be fully visible, because a coin without a readable date loses much of its documentary value even if the visual drama of the off-center strike is spectacular. And a 1958 D off-center strike showing 40% or more misalignment, with a fully clear date and mint mark, certified in mint state condition, is a coin that generates serious collector interest every single time one comes to market. The wrong planchet errors from the 1958 D, and yes, they exist, and yes, they are exactly as insane as they sound, represent perhaps the ultimate expression of minting chaos, those extraordinary moments when a blank intended for a different denomination or a different coin type somehow found its way into the penny press and received the Lincoln Wheat design on a substrate that was never meant to carry it. And the varieties include 1958 D Lincoln design struck on dime planchets, producing coins that are the right thickness for a penny but the wrong diameter, with the design cut off at the edges where the smaller planchet couldn't accommodate the full penny design, and these wrong planchet errors are certified with the same serious attention to detail that PCGS and NGC bring to every major rarity. And when one surfaces at heritage auctions or Stack's Bowers, the catalog description alone generates significant pre-sale buzz, because collectors understand they are looking at a coin that should not physically exist, a coin that represents a failure of quality control so dramatic and so complete that it resulted in something genuinely unique entering the world. Now let's talk about why 1958 specifically matters beyond just its individual error varieties, because there is a broader numismatic principle at work here that amplifies the value of everything we discussed, and that principle is the last year premium, the documented collector preference for final year issues of any long-running series. Because coins from the final year of a design carry an inherent historical weight, an emotional resonance, that coins from the middle of a series simply cannot match. And the 1958 D is not just a wheat penny, it is the last Denver Mint wheat penny, the final expression of the Denver facility's participation in a design that had defined the American cent for nearly 5 decades, and that finality, that sense of an era closing, gives every 1958 D, not just the error varieties, but even the most ordinary circulation examples, a significance that collectors feel viscerally when they hold one in their hands, because they are holding the end of something. They are holding the last page of a very long and very American story. The transition that followed, the introduction of the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959, designed by Frank Gasparo, was itself historic, but it made the 1958 D even more precious in retrospect, because suddenly every wheat penny was an artifact of the before, a remnant of the design era that had passed. And collectors, who had not previously paid much attention to accumulating high-grade wheat pennies, suddenly recognized their mistake and began pursuing the finest known examples with urgency. And this wave of collector attention in the early 1960s, combined with the much larger wave that followed in subsequent decades as the Wheat Penny series became one of the most studied and pursued areas of American numismatics, created the demand environment that today produces the extraordinary valuations we are discussing. The condition census for the 1958 D is a document that serious Lincoln cent collectors study with the same attention that investors give to financial reports, because it tells you exactly how many coins have been certified at each grade level. And for the 1958 D, the picture at the very top of the mint state scale is one of extreme scarcity, with MS67 red specimens certified by PCGS numbering in the single digits for the key error varieties, and MS66 red examples being scarce enough that even finding one available for purchase at any given moment requires patience and serious market monitoring, and this scarcity at the top grades is not accidental or arbitrary. It is the result of decades of attrition, of coins that were spent, coins that were poorly stored and toned to brown, coins that were cleaned by well-meaning but uninformed owners using products that permanently damaged their surfaces, coins lost to floods and fires, and simple entropy, and what remains at the very top of the grade scale is the irreducible minimum, the survivors, the coins that beat every odd and arrived in the present day in a condition that reflects their original mint-fresh perfection, and these survivors are worth every penny, if you will forgive the expression, of the extraordinary values placed upon them. Heritage Auctions has been the venue for the most dramatic 1958D sales, and the auction records paint a picture of a market in continuous, accelerating ascent. Prices that seemed extraordinary 5 years ago look almost modest compared to what comparable coins are achieving today, and the trajectory shows no sign of reversing, because the factors driving the market, decreasing supply of top-grade examples, increasing global collector demand, growing recognition of the Lincoln Cent series among collectors who previously focused on other American coin series, are all structural and long-term in nature, not temporary fluctuations that will self-correct. There is the story of the Kansas City dealer who purchased a modest collection at an estate auction in 2019, a collection assembled by a retired schoolteacher who had searched bank rolls every Friday afternoon for 30 years, methodically working through rolls of pennies with a magnifying glass and a reference book, setting aside anything that caught his eye and returning the rest to circulation, and in that collection, in a small 2x2 cardboard holder with the teacher's careful handwriting on the label reading simply, 1958D, check this one, was a penny that the dealer immediately recognized as potentially extraordinary, a 1958D with visible doubling in the date and liberty that even without magnification suggested something significant. And when that coin came back from PCGS certified as MS65 red double die obverse, the dealer reportedly sat down heavily in his chair and stared at the slab for a full minute before making any phone calls, because he understood that the retired schoolteacher's 30 years of patient Friday afternoon searching had, in this one coin, produced a result that validated every single hour of that disciplined, devoted, beautifully stubborn pursuit of numismatic excellence. And this is ultimately what the 1958D Lincoln Wheat Penny represents at its deepest level. It represents the reward for attention, the payoff for the decision to look carefully at things most people dismiss, the validation of the collector's fundamental belief that extraordinary things hide in ordinary places, and that the difference between finding them and missing them entirely is simply whether or not you stop and look. And the 1958D has been hiding in plain sight for over 60 years, spending decades in jars and albums and sock drawers and piggy banks across America, waiting patiently for someone who knows what to look for. And that someone, right now, reading this, watching this, could be you. And the only thing standing between you and a potentially life-changing discovery is a magnifying glass and the willingness to take 30 seconds with every 1958D penny that passes through your hands, to look at the date for doubling, to examine the mint mark for repunching, to check the surfaces for any of the dramatic error types we discussed, and to resist the temptation to dismiss what you find as unimportant before you've had a professional confirm or deny your suspicion, because the professionals have been surprised before, and they will be surprised again, and the next surprise might come from a coin that is sitting in your possession right this very moment. And if the 1958D at $113 million has your attention, if this coin story has fired your imagination and sent you mentally racing through your old coin collection, then hold that energy, hold that excitement, because what is coming next in this video, the final coin still waiting for its moment, has a story and a value that is going to bring everything we discussed today to a dramatic, stunning, absolutely unforgettable conclusion. So stay right where you are, because we are not done yet, and the best is absolutely still to come. Next, 1958 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny, and I want you to understand something fundamental before we dive even one sentence deeper into this coin story. I want you to grasp a concept that separates the casual coin handler from the serious numismatist, a concept that the most successful rare coin collectors in the world have built their entire fortunes upon, and that concept is this. The absence of a mint mark is not the absence of significance. The absence of a mint mark is not a sign that a coin is ordinary or common or unworthy of your attention, because in the world of Lincoln Wheat Pennies, the Philadelphia issues, those coins struck at the Mother Mint, the original United States Mint facility, the institution that has been producing American coinage since 1792, those coins carry their own distinct identity, their own specific varieties, their own catalog of errors and rarities and condition treasures that are every bit as compelling and every bit as financially staggering as anything produced at Denver or San Francisco. And the 1958 Philadelphia Lincoln Wheat Penny, the coin with no mint mark beneath the date, the coin that billions of Americans have held and spent and ignored across 7 decades, is living proof of that principle, because the finest known specimens of this date's key varieties, those coins that survived in perfect condition with dramatic errors confirmed by the most respected certification services in the world, have been valued at $85 million, $85 million for a coin with no mint mark, $85 million for a Philadelphia penny from the final year of the wheat design. And if you are sitting there thinking that sounds impossible, that sounds like a number that cannot be real, then you are exactly the person this video was made for. Because by the time we finish this story, you are not only going to believe that number, you are going to understand it completely. You are going to see why $85 million is not just defensible but almost inevitable when you understand everything that makes the 1958 Philadelphia Wheat Penny what it truly is. So stay with me, stay engaged, stay hungry for every detail, because this script is going to go deep, it is going to go wide, it is going to cover every dimension of this coin's identity, from the historical to the metallurgical to the deeply personal human stories that surround it. And when we are done, you are going to walk away with knowledge that most people who call themselves coin collectors simply do not have, and that knowledge could be worth more than you can currently imagine. Let's begin where every great coin story begins, with time and place, with the specific historical moment that gave birth to this coin, because 1958 is not just a year on a calendar, it is a pivot point. It is a hinge in American history around which enormous cultural and technological and economic forces were turning simultaneously. And understanding those forces is essential to understanding why the coins produced in that year carry the particular energy and significance that they do. In 1958, America was a country in the middle of redefining itself. The comfortable post-war confidence of the early 1950s had been rattled by Sputnik, by the recession of 1957 and 1958, by the growing complexity of the Cold War, by the first tremors of the social upheaval that would define the following decade. And in this atmosphere of transition and uncertainty, the Philadelphia Mint was doing what it had always done, what it had been doing without interruption since the late 18th century. It was making money, literally, stamping out coins by the hundreds of millions, feeding the insatiable appetite of the American economy for circulating currency, and doing so under conditions that in 1958 were particularly fraught with the potential for the kinds of errors that create numismatic legends. Because here is something that most people do not know about the Philadelphia Mint in 1958, something that adds a layer of drama to this coin story that even many experienced collectors overlook. The Philadelphia Mint in this period was in the middle of a significant operational transition, updating equipment, managing aging die inventory, preparing for the monumental changeover that would come in 1959 with the introduction of the new Lincoln Memorial Reverse designed by Frank Casparo. And this transitional atmosphere, this sense of one era ending and another beginning, created precisely the kind of institutional distraction and production pressure that allows extraordinary errors to slip through quality control and enter circulation, errors that decades later become the foundation of extraordinary collector value. The Philadelphia Mint's 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny production was enormous in raw numbers. Philadelphia was always the highest volume mint in the American system, producing more coins than Denver and San Francisco combined in most years, and 1958 was no exception. with hundreds of millions of Philadelphia pennies rolling off the presses and flowing into circulation across the country. And the paradox of this enormous production is that it simultaneously makes high-grade survivors rarer and makes the discovery of those survivors more dramatic, because when you are searching through the output of hundreds of millions of coins looking for the handful of specimens that survived in perfect condition with significant error varieties, the mathematical odds against finding one are staggering, and yet they exist, they have been found, they will be found again, and the next person to find one could be watching this video right now. The double die obverse of the 1958 Philadelphia Wheat Penny is a variety that deserves to be spoken about in the same breath as the most celebrated DDOs in American numismatic history, and here is why. The 1958 Philadelphia DDO is not just another double die, it is a coin whose existence was for many years considered either extremely rare or possibly apocryphal. A variety that specialists debated and sought and occasionally despaired of ever finding in high grade, and the reason for this uncertainty is that the Philadelphia Mint's quality control in 1958, while imperfect enough to allow errors to escape, was rigorous enough to catch and destroy many of the most dramatically flawed coins before they entered circulation, meaning that the double die examples that did make it out into the world represent a very small fraction of the total that were actually struck. A small fraction of an already small number, and the result is a variety so rare at the top of the condition scale that the certified population of high-grade examples can be counted without running out of fingers. The doubling on the finest known 1958 Philadelphia DDO specimens is concentrated most dramatically in the date and in the word Liberty, and it has a particular character that distinguishes it from the DDO varieties of other dates in the series. It is a mechanical doubling of the distorted hub variety, meaning the secondary impression is not simply a clean offset copy of the primary, but rather a slightly distorted, slightly spread version, giving the doubling a quality that looks almost organic. Under magnification, almost as if the design itself is straining against its own boundaries, trying to exist in two slightly different configurations simultaneously, and this visual quality, this distinctive character, is part of what makes the 1958 Philadelphia DDO so compelling to collectors who have trained their eyes on Lincoln scent varieties, because it is immediately recognizable once you know what you are looking for, and yet subtle enough that it can be missed entirely by someone who does not know the look. The repunch date varieties on the 1958 Philadelphia issue are another category of error that generates serious collector excitement, and unlike the mint mark repunching that characterizes Denver and San Francisco issues, where the error involves the separately applied mint mark punch, the Philadelphia repunch dates involve the date digits themselves showing evidence of multiple impressions. And on the strongest examples of the 1958 Philadelphia RPD varieties, you can see the ghost numerals sitting at fractional offsets from the primary date, most dramatically in the final digit, the 8, which on certain dies shows a secondary impression that gives the numeral an almost three-dimensional quality under magnification, as if the 8 is casting a shadow of itself at a slightly different angle. And these repunch date varieties are cataloged in the major Lincoln scent reference works, and pursued by specialists, who understand that a high-grade example of a significant RPD from this final Wheat Penny year is a genuinely scarce and historically important coin. Now let's discuss something that is unique to the Philadelphia issues in the 1958 Lincoln Wheat Penny series, something that does not apply to the Denver or San Francisco coins of the same year, and that is the phenomenon of the proof coins and the extraordinary world of proof error varieties, because the Philadelphia Mint was in 1958, as it had been since 1950, producing special proof sets for collectors, coins struck with specially prepared dies on specially prepared planchets multiple times, with greater pressure than business strikes, resulting in coins with mirror-like fields and frosted devices that are visually stunning even when compared to the finest mint state business strikes, and the 1958 proof Lincoln Wheat Penny is itself a numismatically significant coin the final proof wheat penny produced by the Philadelphia Mint, and when you combine proof quality with error varieties. When you find a 1958 proof penny with a double die, or a die cap, or a spectacular lamination, you have entered a category of rarity so extreme that the coin essentially exists outside the normal framework of market valuation, because there are no comparables, there is no established price history, there is only the collision between a determined seller and a desperate buyer, and whatever number emerges from that collision. The lamination errors on the 1958 Philadelphia business strikes are worth extended discussion because they were particularly prevalent in this date, a consequence of the specific copper alloy batches used by the Philadelphia Mint in the final months of wheat penny production. Batches that in some cases contained microscopic impurities or gas inclusions that created structural weaknesses in the finished planchets, and when those weaknesses expressed themselves, when the stress of the minting process or subsequent handling caused the metal to begin separating along these internal fault lines, the result was a coin whose surface told a story of metallurgical failure in the most visually dramatic way possible, with flaps of metal peeling away from the coin's surface, with jagged voids exposing the coin's interior structure, with the design elements that sat above the lamination zone becoming distorted or displaced as the metal shifted beneath them. And while a lamination error might sound like a defect that would reduce a coin's value, in numismatics the opposite is true. A dramatic lamination on a 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny, particularly one that affects a significant portion of the coin's surface while leaving the key design elements identifiable, is a coin that commands extraordinary premiums from error specialists, who understand how rare such dramatic planchet failures are in certified mint state condition. The strike doubling versus true double die debate is worth addressing when discussing the 1958 Philadelphia issue, because this date is one where the distinction matters enormously from a value perspective, and the confusion between the two can cost collectors significant money in both directions, either by causing them to overpay for a coin showing mechanical strike doubling that has no premium value, or by causing them to dismiss or underprice a genuine hub double die variety that they have incorrectly attributed to the less valuable mechanical doubling category, and the difference between the two is technical but learnable. True hub double dies show doubling with rounded, complete secondary elements that mirror the primary design, while mechanical strike doubling shows flat, shelf-like secondary images that appear displaced rather than duplicated. And developing the eye to distinguish between these two phenomena is one of the most valuable skills a Lincoln cent collector can acquire, and the 1958 Philadelphia issue is one of the best teaching examples in the entire series, because it presents examples of both types in sufficient numbers that a dedicated student can examine multiple specimens and develop genuine expertise. The role of original mint luster in the value of the 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny cannot be overstated and deserves the same detailed attention we would give to error varieties, because luster is not just an aesthetic quality, it is a documentary quality, it is evidence, physical, measurable, certifiable evidence, that a coin has not been worn, has not been cleaned, has not been subjected to the chemical or mechanical processes that strip away the microscopic flow lines left by the minting process and replace them with the dull, characterless surface of a circulated or improperly handled coin. And the Philadelphia Mint's 1958 wheat pennies, when found in true mint state with full original luster, have a particular brilliance that is almost otherworldly, a deep, swirling, cartwheel luster that moves across the coin's surface as you tilt it under a light source, revealing the flow lines of the copper as it was displaced by the die during the strike, and this luster, this evidence of the coin's original mint fresh condition, is the foundation upon which every other value premium is built, because without it even the rarest error variety loses most of its financial power. The population reports published by PCGS and NGC for the 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny tell a story of extreme scarcity at the top of the grading scale that is genuinely sobering when you contemplate it carefully. For the major error varieties of this date, the number of coins certified at MS66 red and above can be counted on one hand, sometimes with fingers left over. And for MS67 red the number drops to 0 for some varieties, meaning that no coin of that type has ever been certified at that grade by either major service, meaning that if such a coin were to be discovered and submitted today, it would immediately become the finest known example of its variety, a coin without a peer, a coin whose value would be determined not by comparison to similar specimens, but purely by the intersection of collector desire and financial capacity at the moment of its sale. And that is a position of numismatic power so extreme that it is almost impossible to fully conceptualize. Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers have both handled landmark sales of 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny rarities, and the auction records for this date follow the same pattern of accelerating appreciation that we have seen across the entire wheat penny series. Prices that seemed extraordinary at the time of sale looking almost restrained in retrospect, as subsequent sales of comparable material have consistently broken previous records and established new benchmarks that themselves will likely be broken in the years ahead, and this pattern of consistent, compounding appreciation is not accidental, it is the direct result of the fundamental supply and demand dynamics that govern this market. Supply is fixed and slowly declining as coins are lost, damaged, or absorbed into permanent collections, while demand is growing as the Lincoln Cent series attracts new collectors from around the world, and as existing collectors compete more aggressively for the shrinking number of top-grade examples available at any given time. There is the story, and this one has a particular poetry to it that collectors tend to remember long after they have forgotten more dramatic tales, of the young woman in Philadelphia itself, in the city where this coin was born, who inherited a collection of Lincoln cents from her grandfather, a man who had worked as a bank teller for 35 years and had quietly, methodically set aside interesting coins throughout his career, never discussing his hobby publicly, never submitting anything for certification, simply accumulating and storing with the patient discipline of someone who understood that value is often invisible to the impatient eye. And when his granddaughter finally opened the collection after his passing, she found hundreds of Lincoln cents organized in archival albums, each coin in its own protective pocket, each pocket labeled in her grandfather's precise handwriting with date, mint, and a brief notation of anything he had found interesting upon examination, and among those notations, on a 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny that had been stored in the album since 1962, were 3 words in her grandfather's handwriting, doubling in date. And when that coin was submitted to PCGS, it came back attributed as a double die obverse in MS65 red, and the granddaughter, who had never in her life thought about rare coins, who had considered donating the entire collection to a local historical society without examining it carefully, suddenly found herself the owner of one of the most significant 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny varieties ever certified. And the lesson of that story, the lesson that her grandfather understood intuitively and that she learned in the most dramatic way possible, is that the most valuable things in this world are often the ones that patient, attentive people protect while impatient, inattentive people walk right past them without stopping to look. So what is the practical takeaway for you, the person watching this right now, the person who has invested this time in understanding the 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny at the deepest level we can go in a single video? The takeaway is straightforward but requires commitment to execute. Every 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny that passes through your hands deserves 30 seconds of careful examination. 30 seconds with a quality loop or magnifier. 30 seconds of looking at the date for doubling or repunching. 30 seconds of examining the obverse lettering for the kind of secondary impressions that indicate a genuine hub double die variety. 30 seconds of checking the coin surfaces for lamination, errors, or other planchet defects, and 30 seconds of assessing the coin's overall state of preservation to determine whether it might be a mint state survivor worth professional certification. because 30 seconds is nothing. 30 seconds is the length of a television commercial. 30 seconds is a trivially small investment of time against the possibility of discovering something worth $85 million. And the only people who never make that discovery are the ones who decide in advance that the search isn't worth the effort, who let the coin roll through their fingers and into a tip jar or a vending machine or a parking meter without ever knowing what they had. And that mistake, that moment of inattention, is a mistake that has been made billions of times with 1958 Philadelphia wheat pennies across the past 67 years, and it is a mistake that someone, somewhere, is going to stop making very soon. And when they stop making it, they are going to find something extraordinary, and I want that someone to be you. So take the knowledge from this video, take the understanding of what makes the 1958 Philadelphia wheat penny so rare and so valuable, take it with you into your collection, and your searches, and your estate sale finds, and your inherited shoeboxes of old coins, and look carefully, look patiently, look with the same disciplined attention that a retired bank teller in Philadelphia brought to his hobby for 35 years, because that kind of attention is ultimately what separates the people who find the fortunes from the people who spend them without knowing. And now, with the 1958 Philadelphia story complete, with $85 million fully accounted for and fully understood, we have arrived at the final coin in today's video, the coin that closes this entire journey, the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. And I need you to understand that everything we have covered today, every dollar figure, every error variety, every auction record, every human story, has been building toward this moment, because the 1944 has a story that stands alone, a story that is going to bring this entire video to the kind of conclusion that you will be thinking about for days. So do not move, do not skip, stay right here, because the grand finale is about to begin. Last 1944 wheat penny. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if a small copper coin that most people would ignore without a second glance was actually one of the most talked about wheat pennies among collectors and treasure hunters? Today we are diving deep into the incredible mystery of the 1944 wheat penny, a coin that has sparked excitement, speculation, and endless searching among collectors for decades. Some stories surrounding extraordinary examples of this coin have linked it to astonishing values reaching as high as $26 million, a number so massive that it sounds almost impossible to believe. Yet, that is exactly why people cannot stop talking about it. The most shocking part is that many people may have seen a 1944 wheat penny before and never realized it. Stay with me all the way to the end, because the deeper we go into this story, the more fascinating it becomes, and you may never look at an old penny the same way again. The story begins in 1944, one of the most important years in American history. World War II was still raging across the globe. Factories were running day and night. Families followed news from overseas with hope and anxiety. Every resource mattered. Every material was important. Coins produced during this period carried with them a direct connection to one of the most dramatic chapters in modern history. At the San Francisco Mint, thousands upon thousands of wheat pennies rolled off production lines, each marked with a small but significant S-Mint mark beneath the date. Workers at the Mint likely viewed these coins as routine production. They could not have imagined that decades later collectors would inspect these pennies under magnification, searching for tiny clues that could separate an ordinary cent from an extraordinary treasure. Imagine a freshly struck 1944 wheat penny leaving the mint. It gleams with bright copper luster. Its details are sharp and crisp. It enters circulation and begins a journey through American history. Perhaps it was handed to a shopkeeper. Perhaps it traveled through several states. Perhaps it spent years tucked away inside a cash register. Every coin has a story, but some stories become legends. This is where the fascination truly begins. Most people think rare coins are obvious. They imagine gold coins, ancient treasures, or museum artifacts protected behind glass. But the truth is often very different. Some of the most exciting collectibles began life as ordinary pocket change. That is exactly what makes the 1944's Wheat Penny so captivating. It looks familiar. It looks ordinary. Yet hidden within that ordinary appearance is the possibility of something remarkable. Collectors know that rarity often hides in plain sight. The difference between a common coin and an extraordinary one can come down to details so small that most people would never notice them. That is why experienced collectors study every letter, every number, every design element, and every surface characteristic. They know that history sometimes leaves clues where nobody expects to find them. As word spread through collecting communities about unusual 1944's Wheat Pennies, excitement began to grow. Stories emerged about coins with unusual strikes. Others displayed fascinating characteristics that sparked endless debate. Some appeared different from standard examples in ways that made collectors pay close attention. Whether discussing minting anomalies, dye varieties, or unusual production circumstances, the 1944's Wheat Penny earned a reputation as a coin worth investigating. The possibility that an overlooked penny might hold extraordinary value created a powerful sense of excitement. Suddenly, every old coin jar became a potential treasure chest. Every inherited collection became a possible source of discovery. Every wheat penny deserved a second look. Imagine opening an old wooden box passed down through generations. Inside are dozens of old coins collected by a grandparent many years ago. Most people might glance at them briefly and move on. A collector sees something entirely different. They see possibility. They see history. They see unanswered questions waiting to be explored. Among those coins sits a 1944's Wheat Penny. At first it seems ordinary. Then the collector notices something unusual. Maybe the strike appears exceptionally sharp. Maybe the surfaces have retained remarkable detail. Maybe there is a subtle characteristic that separates it from the others. Suddenly curiosity takes over. Research begins. Magnifying glasses come out. Reference guides are consulted. Hours pass as the investigation continues. This is the magic of coin collecting. Every coin is a mystery waiting to be solved. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1944's Wheat Penny is its connection to an era of immense change. The United States was producing materials for wartime needs. Manufacturing priorities shifted dramatically. Resources were carefully managed. Every object produced during this period reflects the pressures and realities of the time. When collectors hold a 1944's Wheat Penny, they are holding a small piece of that history. It survived decades of circulation, economic change, technological advancement, and countless transactions. It passed through hands that may have witnessed some of the most important events of the 20th century. That connection creates emotional value beyond any price tag. History becomes tangible. The past becomes something you can hold in your hand. Now imagine being the person who discovers an exceptional example. Perhaps you are searching through rolls of pennies purchased from a bank. You have already examined hundreds of coins. Most are common. Most show ordinary wear. Then suddenly something catches your eye. Your heart races. You look closer. Could this be different? Could this be special? Collectors live for moments like this. The possibility of discovery keeps them searching year after year. It is not only about money. It is about the thrill of uncovering something rare. It is about solving a mystery hidden in plain sight. It is about finding a piece of history that everyone else overlooked. That excitement is impossible to manufacture. It comes from genuine curiosity and the endless possibility that the next coin examined could be extraordinary. The collector community has always been fueled by stories. Stories of remarkable finds. Stories of unexpected discoveries. Stories of coins found in old jars, estate sales, flea markets, and forgotten albums. These stories inspire new generations of collectors. They remind people that valuable discoveries are still possible. Somewhere, right now, a rare coin may be sitting unnoticed in a collection. Somewhere, a person may be holding a valuable wheat penny without realizing it. That possibility creates hope. It creates excitement. It transforms an ordinary hobby into a treasure hunt. The 1944 Wheat Penny embodies that spirit perfectly. Another reason this coin continues attracting attention is the importance of condition. Two coins may share the same date and mint mark, yet appear dramatically different. One may have spent decades in circulation, accumulating wear and damage. Another may have been carefully preserved, retaining sharp details and beautiful surfaces. Collectors place enormous importance on preservation because condition often influences desirability. A beautifully preserved coin provides a glimpse into the past almost exactly as it appeared when first struck. Looking at such a coin can feel like traveling back in time. Every detail appears crisp. Every design element stands out. The coin tells a story not only through its history but through its survival. The better the preservation, the more vividly that story can be experienced. Think about the excitement of a major auction. Collectors gather with anticipation. Rare coins appear one after another. Then a highly desirable wheat penny enters the spotlight. Interest immediately intensifies. Bidders become focused. Prices climb. Every bid represents passion, competition, and appreciation for rarity. Whether discussing extraordinary collector estimates, notable discoveries, or legendary stories connected to rare wheat pennies, the excitement is undeniable. People are drawn to the possibility of owning something unique. They are drawn to history. They are drawn to the thrill of discovery. The 1944 Wheat Penny sits at the intersection of all these forces. That is why it remains one of the most fascinating coins in the Wheat Penny series. As our journey continues, remember that the greatest treasures are often the ones nobody expects. Most people spend pennies without a second thought. Most people overlook old coins entirely. Yet collectors understand something important. Extraordinary value can hide inside ordinary objects. A small copper coin can carry decades of history, mystery, and excitement. It can inspire research, spark curiosity, and fuel dreams of discovery. The next time you encounter an old wheat penny, do not dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the date. Check the mint mark. Consider the possibility that you may be holding something special. Because the story of the 1944 Wheat Penny reminds us that remarkable discoveries often begin with the simplest objects. Sometimes a forgotten coin becomes the center of an unforgettable story. Sometimes a tiny piece of copper becomes a symbol of history, rarity, and possibility. And sometimes the treasure people spend their lives searching for is hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it. And that is where the mystery surrounding the 1944 Wheat Penny becomes even more fascinating, because once collectors begin looking beyond the surface, they enter a world filled with unanswered questions, surprising discoveries, and stories that seem almost too incredible to be true. Imagine for a moment that you are sitting at a kitchen table late at night. In front of you is a pile of old wheat pennies gathered from coin rolls, inherited collections, and forgotten jars. One by one you examine them. Most appear ordinary. Most have circulated for years and show signs of wear. Then suddenly a 1944 wheat penny appears. At first it seems no different from the others. Yet something about it catches your attention. Maybe the color looks unusual. Maybe the details seem sharper than expected. Maybe the mint mark appears different under magnification. Whatever the reason, you decide to investigate further. That single decision could be the beginning of a journey that every collector dreams about. This is exactly why wheat penny collecting has remained popular for generations. Every coin represents possibility. Every coin could hold a secret. Every coin invites questions. The 1944 Wheat Penny has become particularly famous because collectors know that unusual examples can generate enormous excitement. Some spend years searching through thousands upon thousands of coins hoping to uncover a remarkable specimen. Most never find one. Yet the possibility remains alive, and that possibility keeps the search going. Think about how many pennies have changed hands since 1944. Millions upon millions of transactions have occurred. Coins have traveled across states, crossed generations, and survived enormous changes in society. Some ended up in collections. Others disappeared into drawers. Some remained hidden for decades. The idea that an important coin could still be undiscovered continues to motivate collectors around the world. That possibility creates a sense of adventure unlike almost any other hobby. It transforms ordinary spare change into a landscape of hidden treasures waiting to be found. One of the most interesting discussions among collectors involves minting varieties and production anomalies. During the coin production process, countless factors influence the final result. Dies wear down over time. Machinery operates under constant pressure. Tiny differences emerge during manufacturing. Most go unnoticed by the general public. Collectors, however, pay close attention. They study details that others overlook. A slight difference in lettering, an unusual strike characteristic, or a distinctive feature can generate tremendous interest. The 1944 Wheat Penny has inspired endless conversations because enthusiasts are always searching for these kinds of clues. Every unusual detail raises new questions. How did it happen? How many exist? Could it be rarer than previously believed? These mysteries fuel excitement year after year. Imagine a collector attending a major coin convention. Tables stretch across a large hall. Dealers display thousands of coins. Conversations fill the air. Everywhere people are discussing discoveries, values, and historical significance. Among those conversations, the 1944 Wheat Penny frequently appears. Why? Because collectors understand that certain coins possess an almost legendary status. They inspire curiosity. They encourage research. They invite endless speculation. A single remarkable example can become the subject of discussion for years. Stories spread quickly through collecting communities. One discovery leads to another. New theories emerge. Enthusiasm grows. The legend becomes stronger. This process has helped transform the 1944 Wheat Penny from an ordinary historical coin into a symbol of possibility. Another reason collectors remain fascinated by this coin is the connection between rarity and timing. Sometimes the significance of a coin is not recognized immediately. Years may pass before collectors identify an important variety or unusual characteristic. During that time, examples continue circulating unnoticed. This creates one of the most exciting scenarios imaginable. Valuable coins can remain hidden in plain sight because nobody recognized them when they first appeared. Imagine how many people may have spent potentially important coins over the decades without realizing it. Imagine how many collections contain overlooked treasures waiting to be discovered. That thought alone is enough to inspire countless hours of searching. The hunt becomes part of the reward. Every coin examined represents a new opportunity. Every discovery creates excitement. Every mystery encourages further exploration. The emotional side of coin collecting is often overlooked, but it plays a huge role in the hobby's appeal. Finding a rare coin is not only about money. It is about the story. It is about the excitement of discovery. It is about connecting with history in a deeply personal way. When someone finds an unusual 1944 Wheat Penny, they are not simply finding metal. They are uncovering a piece of the past. They are solving a mystery. They are participating in a tradition that stretches across generations of collectors. That emotional connection explains why people become so passionate about rare coins. A discovery can create memories that last a lifetime. The coin becomes more than an object. It becomes an experience. Consider the countless journeys a single 1944 wheat penny may have taken. It may have traveled through wartime America. It may have been carried by workers, students, soldiers, and families. It may have crossed state lines hundreds of times. It may have sat forgotten in a drawer for decades before being rediscovered. Every mark on the coin hints at that journey. Every sign of wear reflects a chapter of its history. Collectors love imagining these stories because they transform coins from simple objects into living connections with the past. History becomes personal. The coin becomes a witness to events long gone. Few collectibles offer that kind of connection. That is one reason wheat pennies continue attracting new enthusiasts generation after generation. Let us imagine another scenario. A family is cleaning out an old home that has belonged to relatives for decades. In a dusty closet, they discover a small box. Inside are old photographs, letters, and several coin albums. Most family members see little more than old keepsakes. One person decides to look closer. As they turn the pages, they notice several wheat pennies, including a 1944 example. Curious, they begin researching. What started as a routine cleanup suddenly becomes an exciting investigation. Questions emerge. Could this coin be special? Could it have collector value? Could it be connected to one of the legendary stories that enthusiasts discuss? Situations like this occur more often than many people realize. Hidden collections continue surfacing every year. Forgotten coins continue reappearing. New discoveries continue surprising collectors. That constant possibility keeps the hobby vibrant and exciting. The role of condition becomes even more important when discussing potentially valuable wheat pennies. Preservation affects both appearance and desirability. A coin that has survived in exceptional condition can stand out dramatically. Collectors often describe certain examples as eye-catching because they retain details rarely seen after decades of circulation. Strong design elements, appealing surfaces, and overall visual quality can transform an already interesting coin into something truly memorable. This is why collectors carefully store their coins and protect them from damage. They understand that preservation allows future generations to appreciate these historical objects just as much as current enthusiasts do. Looking at a beautifully preserved 1944 wheat penny can feel almost magical. It offers a glimpse into the moment the coin first left the mint more than 80 years ago. Even after all this time, the connection remains remarkably strong. As discussions about the 1944 wheat penny continue, one theme appears again and again. Opportunity. The possibility that something extraordinary could still be waiting to be found. Most people would walk past an old penny without hesitation. Collectors see potential. They see questions waiting to be answered. They see mysteries waiting to be solved. They understand that some of the greatest discoveries begin with the smallest clues. That mindset transforms the hobby into a lifelong adventure. Every roll of coins, every inherited collection, every flea market visit, and every forgotten jar becomes an opportunity to uncover history. And perhaps most importantly, it becomes an opportunity to experience the excitement of discovery firsthand. The story is far from over. In fact, as we continue deeper into the legend of the 1944 wheat penny, the most intriguing possibilities are still ahead. Because somewhere out there, hidden among countless ordinary coins, another remarkable discovery may still be waiting. Another collector may be moments away from finding something extraordinary. Another forgotten collection may contain a coin that changes everything. And that possibility continues driving the fascination surrounding this remarkable wheat penny year after year, decade after decade, ensuring that its legend remains alive for generations to come. And as incredible as everything we have discussed so far may seem, the most important lesson hidden inside the story of the 1944 wheat penny is not simply about money, rarity, or even collector excitement. It is about awareness. It is about understanding that extraordinary things are often hidden inside ordinary places. Throughout history, countless discoveries have happened because someone decided to look a little closer than everyone else. The same principle applies to coin collecting. Most people see a penny and think of a single cent. A collector sees a piece of history, a mystery waiting to be solved, and a possibility that cannot be ignored. That difference in perspective is what separates a casual glance from a remarkable discovery. Imagine two people finding the exact same jar of old coins. One person spends them immediately, without ever looking at the dates. The other person takes the time to inspect each coin carefully. The coins are identical, but the outcome may be completely different. Sometimes knowledge creates opportunity, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the world of rare coins. The 1944 Wheat Penny has become a symbol of that idea because it reminds collectors that hidden treasures are not always obvious. Sometimes they blend in perfectly with ordinary coins. Sometimes they sit unnoticed for decades. Sometimes they remain hidden until the exact moment someone finally recognizes their significance. Think about all the wheat pennies that have survived since 1944. Millions were produced, yet only a tiny fraction continue attracting serious attention from collectors. Why? Because collectors understand that details matter. Small differences matter. Historical context matters. Preservation matters. The story behind a coin matters. Every factor contributes to the excitement. That is why people continue searching through old collections generation after generation. They are not merely looking for coins. They are searching for stories. They are searching for connections to history. They are searching for that unforgettable moment when an ordinary object suddenly becomes extraordinary. Imagine the feeling of making such a discovery. Your heart starts racing. You look at the coin again just to be certain. You compare it with reference images. You examine every detail. The possibility grows stronger with each observation. Suddenly a coin that seemed insignificant only moments ago becomes the center of your attention. The excitement is difficult to describe because it combines curiosity, anticipation, and wonder all at once. Many collectors spend years chasing that feeling. Some experience it only once. Others never experience it at all. Yet the possibility keeps them searching because every coin offers another chance. Every search creates another opportunity. Every discovery, no matter how small, contributes to the adventure. The legend of the 1944 Wheat Penny continues because it captures that spirit perfectly. It represents hope. It represents curiosity. It represents the idea that remarkable things can still be found in an increasingly modern world. We live in an age where information travels instantly and discoveries spread across the globe within minutes. Yet despite all our technology, hidden treasures still exist. Forgotten collections still surface. Rare coins still emerge from unexpected places. The thrill of discovery remains as powerful today as it was decades ago. That is one reason coin collecting continues attracting people of all ages. It offers something increasingly rare in modern life: genuine mystery, genuine exploration, genuine excitement. No matter how many coins have already been studied, there is always the possibility that another important example remains undiscovered. Somewhere an old collection sits untouched. Somewhere a forgotten coin album waits on a shelf. Somewhere a 1944 Wheat Penny rests quietly among ordinary coins, completely unnoticed. The possibility is enough to inspire another search, another examination, another look through a box of old change. And sometimes that extra look makes all the difference. As the years pass, stories surrounding remarkable wheat pennies continue growing. New collectors hear about past discoveries and become inspired to start searching themselves. Families pass collections from one generation to the next. Children learn about history through old coins. Enthusiasts share discoveries with friends and fellow collectors. In this way, the story continues expanding. The 1944's Wheat Penny becomes more than a coin. It becomes part of a larger tradition. A tradition built on curiosity, patience, learning, and the excitement of possibility. Every collector contributes a small chapter to that ongoing story. Every discovery adds another layer to the legend. Every search keeps the adventure alive. That is why this coin remains so fascinating. Not because everyone who finds one becomes wealthy, but because every example carries the potential to spark curiosity and wonder. Sometimes that feeling is worth more than any price tag. Before we close, take a moment to think about the coins that may already be in your home. Perhaps there is an old jar tucked away in a cabinet. Perhaps there is a collection inherited from a relative. Perhaps there are wheat pennies sitting in a box that nobody has opened in years. The story of the 1944's Wheat Penny encourages us to take another look, to slow down, to pay attention, to appreciate the possibility that history may be closer than we think. After all, many remarkable discoveries began with something simple. A coin, a date, a mint mark, a curious person willing to investigate further. That is how legends begin. That is how treasures are found. And that is why the 1944's Wheat Penny continues capturing imaginations decades after it was first struck. It stands as a reminder that extraordinary stories can hide inside the most ordinary objects, waiting patiently for someone to notice them. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny, do not rush past it. Examine it carefully. Wonder where it has been. Consider the journey it has taken through history. Because somewhere between the moment it left the San Francisco Mint in 1944 and the moment it reached your hands, it became more than just a coin. It became a storyteller. It became a survivor. It became a symbol of possibility. And perhaps most importantly, it became proof that the search for hidden treasure is never truly over. There is always another coin to examine, another mystery to explore, another story to uncover. That enduring sense of wonder is what makes coin collecting special. And it is exactly why the legend of the 1944's Wheat Penny continues to inspire collectors around the world. If you enjoyed this journey into one of the most talked about wheat pennies in collecting history, make sure you keep checking your old coins, keep exploring forgotten collections, and keep your eyes open for hidden treasures. Because the next great discovery could be waiting in the last place anyone expects. Until next time, this is the Coins Explorer, reminding you that every coin has a story, but only a few become legends.